Good morning. Welcome to Chapter 1, Modern Project Management. First, I'd like to give you an overview of what we'll be covering over the next couple of weeks. We'll start up with introduction. I will be running through 8 chapters, and then I'll hand over to my colleague Sasastri to cover the rest of the chapters. So the first chapter will be introduction, followed by strategy, then organization, defining project, estimation, project networks, managing risks, schedule, resources, and cost. What is a project? According to the Project Management Institute, it's a temporary endeavor that's undertaken to create a unique product, a service, or result. There's some key characteristics of a project. First, it has to have an established objective, followed with a defined lifespan with a beginning and an end. It will involve several departments and professionals. It's usually doing something new, and it has specific time, cost, and performance requirements, especially on time, cost, and performance, which leads to quality. These 3 variables or factors will be critical when we discuss how to think about trade-offs between time, cost, quality, and performance. So let's review what the difference between a program versus a project is. A program is a group of projects that are related and they are designed to achieve a common goal over a much longer period of time, an extended period of time. When we think about managing programs, we consider how to be able to manage a group of projects that are related, they are interdependent, so that we can coordinate those different projects to achieve various strategic objectives. For us, the best example is completing a course. For example, what we are doing in project management. This course in itself will help us to achieve what we are pursuing you as students to get a degree for a business major or a major that's related to your field and your career. There's a need to try to establish what the differences between routine or ongoing work versus projects. Here is a list of all of that examples, from taking class notes to writing a term paper, entering receipts, setting up a sales kiosk, and so on and so forth. So it's really critical to consider that when we work for an organization, what we are doing day to day, that we've been assigned to do, whatever department or function we work for, is different from being assigned a project where our work is going to be something with a defined objective, with a defined timeline, and involving a defined budget or cost. Now, in this textbook that we adopted from Larson, we use primarily 4 stages or 4 phases to plan projects. Now, you might encounter various definitions between defining and initiation. They practically are the same. Now, for this course or this textbook that we adopt, we use the word defining or define. But in some other textbooks, they might say initiation. And in some textbooks or definitions of project lifecycle, they might have an additional stage between executing or execution with monitoring and controlling. So somewhat like 5 stages, but here we say there are 4 phases or 4 stages, where they might state executing, monitoring, and controlling are somewhat working in parallel or simultaneously. So for us, we keep it simple. We start with defining, as far as we use this tax and this course tax is concerned. We start out with goals, objectives that we want to achieve in the project. Then we go on to specifications and trying to draft what is required and writing the scope of the project. And that's where we establish a project scope statement. Then we drill down into the tasks or the project team that are required to come together to define the tasks and deliverables and the responsibilities of each of that project team members. In the planning stages, which, as you can see, is the longest process that takes in itself from the beginning as well. So you might say, well, are these stages, defining and planning, occurring at different time frames? No, they're actually overlapping. Right? So while you're defining, you're also conducting planning in parallel, right? And the planning stages and executing stages takes the longest part of the process, because as you work through a project, you might see that you are constantly attempting to try to accomplish tasks and deliverables. Well, we put it in this way where we can say that schedules, budgets, resources, risks, and staffing are the primary factors or variables that has to be discussed, or deliverables that has to be planned during the planning stages. It has to be accomplished during the planning stages. And the executing stages is where there's a lot more controlling in terms of resources and planning, in terms of status, and also making changes, ensuring quality, and trying to bring forecasts into the project lifecycle stages. And then finally, the closing has got the training a customer, transferring documentation, conducting evaluation, and lessons learned. And all of that, as we think about project lifecycle, it is an ongoing iterative process focusing on each of those key variables that is listed in this picture. Therefore, to be a project manager, or PM in short, is a challenging role, as that role requires that individual to be managing activities that goes outside the skill sets, traditional skill sets of a functional expertise or skills that have been developed over a period of time. So there will be the need to try to bring in new team members, resources that you have to fight for, marshal in from other departments. For customer-driven project, the need to be a good liaison, a good relationship building individual, because that's being the customer-facing person for the organization. To be able to work with a very diverse personality and culture of people that is within the team and external to the team, all the different stakeholders that are required to be involved in the project or influencing the project. There's a need to be a leader, to provide direction, to be a good manager, so that you can coordinate all the technical dimensions, technical scope of the project, and to be accountable and responsible for success and results of the project, and to be able to provide great communication, inspiration, motivation to the people, so that you bring in the people to solve problems when it's necessary. Now, let's go into some of the current drivers or factors that are affecting the project management world. More and more companies are relying on projects to advance and to compete. It is in itself, as we consider being in the Silicon Valley, there are the tech industry, the life sciences industry, that taps on projects to be able to compete and to advance themselves and to create a lot more innovation and to reduce time to market for products and services. So there is a compression of what the product life cycle is. And what does that mean? That really is just products are getting rolled out so much faster in the market. You might say, used to be a couple of years you see a new product or new electronic product being developed or designed and rolled out, but now it's months, even weeks, to be able to see how a new product is just emerged to compete. So with that, there is a knowledge explosion. There is so much more data, and with the AI and machine learning capabilities that have been able to use some of this tech opportunities and data to crunch and make decisions much quicker. There's also this focus towards sustainability, environmental responsibility, to be more responsible socially. So the triple bottom line is something that is also a part of what companies need to focus on when they conduct projects or they implement new products through project management life cycle. And customer focus is much more important and much more critical, because those are your revenue generator in terms of giving you that opportunity to support you and increase your profitability as a whole. So projects in itself can actually solve problems and be able to tackle the ongoing challenges in the industry. In the later part of the chapter 15, towards the end, we have a dedicated chapter on Agile PM. Here we want to just introduce briefly what Agile is. So Agile is prevalent in the industry where projects does not have stability in terms of prediction, in terms of outcomes. It's really difficult and challenging to plan out a full WBS or network schedule. So there's high levels of uncertainty. And if you go back in time, just a decade or so ago, where more and more software and tech products that require a lot more change in the features and requirements towards customers and towards the market, that requires a much more flexible process, and we call it the IID, incremental iterative development process, and also called sometimes referred to as a rolling wave approach. Requires this collaboration with customers and breaking those projects into very small features or functional pieces. And then as this is conducted in terms of iteration, both customers and project managers can come together and address any changes required, and ensuring that it is effective and to be able to be applied to that particular industry or service that they are creating towards satisfying customers. Usually it is a small team of 4 to 8 project team members that takes on an agile project. Example of that is a rolling wave, where we kind of talked about just a while ago, and it's requiring from the start of a project for iteration to occur every cycle, which lasts from a couple of weeks, 1 to a couple of weeks to 4 weeks, and then to ensure that each cycle has some form of progress that can be demonstrated to a customer or to the internal stakeholder that is responsible to be the customer interface. And then it goes on after each iteration until such time where the customer is satisfied and the project is considered closed. So the PM today requires both the art and the science combined, or the technical and the social cultural dimension, where the technical dimension consists of the scope that is required to be developed, the WBS, the schedules, the resources, the baseline budgets, the status reports, while the social cultural requires soft skills, communication skills, the ability to understand how to lead, how to solve problems, how to solve conflicts, how to address teamwork and create a strong synergy within the team, how to negotiate internally and externally, and how to manage politics and customer expectations. So combining that to be successful requires that both approaches, both dimensions are continuously developed, both as an individual to be a project manager, but also within the project team and the organization as a whole. Thank you for listening to the first lecture.